I'll write part one of the story in English based on the outline following the successful storytelling structure from the example. I'll aim for approximately 5,000 words for this first part. The call came out of nowhere. The photographer whispered, "Ma'am, you need to see something, and please don't tell your son yet." By the next sunset, I would learn the truth about my daughter-in-law and how deeply she betrayed him and me. Before I go on, let me say thank you. If you're here listening, it means more than you know. Some stories sit heavy on the heart, and sharing them feels a little lighter when someone's beside you. You know, when you get older, life settles into a rhythm. Quiet mornings, a mug warming your hands, joints reminding you the body keeps its own calendar, whether you like it or not. My name is Eleanor Thompson, 68 years old, retired art teacher from Westfield High in Boston. Hands rough from decades guiding teenagers through watercolors and stubborn clay, but steady enough to hold a coffee cup and a memory without shaking. I live in Newton, Massachusetts, a suburb where folks still wave without thinking twice, where the pharmacist remembers which medications you take, and the bakery starts preparing your usual cinnamon roll the moment they spot you crossing the street. After my husband Thomas passed 10 years ago, it's just been me and the routines we built. I learned to cook more than just his favorite pot roast. I kept his rose bushes alive, even if half of them always lean like they can't decide which sun to follow. And each evening I'd settle into my porch swing, watching the sky fade behind maple trees, like time apologizing for leaving again. My boy Nathan has always been my pride. A software engineer in Chicago, steady, smart, and good in a way you don't teach. It's born into a person. He calls every Sunday just like he promised his father on his deathbed. You don't break promises in this family. Not if you were raised right. So when he told me he found the one, my heart expanded in my chest like a breath I'd forgotten to exhale. "Mom," he said that November evening, his voice warm through the phone line. "I've met someone. I think she's the one." I remember standing in my kitchen, wooden spoon dripping tomato sauce onto the floor, but I didn't care. "Tell me everything," I whispered, feeling Thomas beside me, somehow listening too. "Her name is Olivia Pierce," Nathan said, and I heard the smile in his voice. "She works in investment finance. We met at a charity auction. Mom, she's brilliant and funny and I prompted, hearing the hesitation. "And she looks at me like I'm her favorite person in the world." That night after hanging up, I sat in Thomas's old reading chair and whispered to the empty room. Our boy found love again. The again sat heavy between us. Nathan had been engaged once before to a sweet girl named Rachel, who died in a car accident just 2 months before their wedding. He'd spent 3 years rebuilding himself after that. And now Olivia. The months that followed were a flurry of excitement. Nathan sent photos, Olivia Pierce, bright smile, polished voice, and confidence sharp enough to cut glass. She was beautiful in that Manhattan way. Sleek dark hair, impeccable clothes, and eyes that looked like they'd read every book on the bestseller list and could quote them all. When Nathan brought her to Newton for Christmas, I watched them together. The way she touched his arm when he spoke, the way he looked at her when she laughed, the way they moved around each other like dancers who'd been practicing for years. She spoke about investments and markets like I speak about brush techniques and color theory. 2 different worlds, same kind of passion. She looked at my son like the world made sense when he walked in. And for a widow who prayed her boy would find real love again, that was more than enough. "Eleanor," she said, helping me clear dishes after dinner. "Nathan speaks about you with such admiration. It's clear where he gets his strength from." I smiled, passing her a plate to dry. "Oh, I think he found his own strength, the hard way." She nodded, serious. "He told me about Rachel. I'm so sorry." "Life gives and takes," I said simply. "I'm glad it gave him you." She touched my hand, then her expensive rings cool against my skin. "Thank you for raising such a good man. There aren't many left." I remember thinking as I watched her walk back to the living room where Nathan waited that my son was in good hands. That night I slept better than I had in years. The engagement came 3 months later. The ring was platinum and diamond elegant and understated. Nathan video called to show me Olivia's hand in his. "Mom," he said, "we want to get married this summer. Is that too soon?" "When you know, you know," I said, echoing what Thomas had once told me when I worried we were rushing things 50 years ago. The months before the wedding passed in a whirl of plans and details. Olivia's parents, wealthy Manhattan socialites, insisted on handling most arrangements. The Pierces were old money with connections throughout New York's elite circles. Walter Pierce, Olivia's father, owned several luxury hotels. Her mother, Caroline, served on the boards of prestigious art foundations. I contributed where I could, small touches that I hoped would make the day special. I sent Nathan his father's cufflinks. I helped select readings for the ceremony. I stitched a small blue heart inside Nathan's suit pocket, something old, something blue, and all my love sewn into each stitch. "You don't need to trouble yourself, Eleanor," Caroline Pierce told me over lunch in Boston. "We have planners for everything." "It's no trouble," I said gently. "It's my only son's wedding." She patted my hand like I was a child who didn't understand. Perhaps I didn't understand her world, but I understood love, and I wanted my fingerprints somewhere on this day that would change Nathan's life. The Peninsula Chicago stood tall and elegant against the summer sky windows gleaming like they'd been polished with stardust. Inside, the grand ballroom had been transformed into a garden wonderland, white roses and hydrangeas cascading from crystal vases, fairy lights twinkling like captured stars, champagne flowing as if from an eternal spring. I wore a blue silk dress. Thomas had always loved his mother's pearl earrings catching the light. My hair, more silver than brown, now had been styled by a hairdresser Caroline insisted on. I felt beautiful and out of place all at once. "Mom," Nathan said, appearing at my side during the pre-ceremony gathering. He looked handsome in his tailored suit, his father's eyes looking back at me. "You look amazing." I straightened his tie in old habit. "You look like your father on our wedding day. He would be so proud." Nathan swallowed hard, blinking rapidly. "I wish he was here." "He is," I said softly, "in ways that matter." The ceremony was something out of a magazine spread. The string quartet played Pachelbel's canon as Olivia walked down the aisle on her father's arm. Her dress was a marvel of silk and lace, simple yet exquisite. When Nathan saw her, the look on his face, pure wonder and love, made my eyes fill with tears. I stood in the front row, chest lifted, heart full, watching my son blink back tears as Olivia walked toward him. A young man holding his future with trembling fingers like Thomas once did with mine. I remembered whispering to my old friend Martha, who stood beside me. "Our kids outgrew us, didn't they?" She nodded, smiling in that way only mothers do when pride aches a little. The vows were personal and heartfelt. Nathan spoke of second chances and finding light after darkness. Olivia promised to cherish and honor him always. When they kissed, the applause was thunderous, genuine joy filling the room like sunshine. The reception was a whirl of toasts, bright lights, and camera flashes. The Pierces spared no expense. Silver cutlery music floating like silk champagne poured as if it grew from a tap in the ground. I even danced once, careful and slow. The knees complain, but joy carries you further than joints ever could. It was during one of these dances that I first noticed Ryan Miller, the wedding photographer. A young man, probably early 30s, with thoughtful eyes behind stylish glasses. Unlike many photographers who inserted themselves into the celebration, Ryan moved quietly, almost invisibly, capturing moments without disturbing them. "He's the best in Chicago," Caroline told me when she caught me watching him. "Works with all the prominent families. Costs a fortune, but Walter insisted." I nodded, watching Ryan adjust his camera before kneeling to capture a shot of the flower girl twirling in her dress. There was something careful, almost reverential about how he worked. Later during the dinner, I noticed something curious. Olivia disappeared for nearly 20 minutes. When she returned, her lipstick had been refreshed, but something in her eyes looked different. Sharper, more focused. I dismissed it as wedding day stress. Every bride deserves moments to collect herself. As the evening progressed, I found myself at the bar getting a sparkling water when I overheard a tense conversation. Turning slightly, I saw Olivia speaking with a tall man in an expensive suit. He wasn't part of the wedding party, but I'd seen him during the ceremony. Handsome with salt and pepper hair and a confidence that seemed to clear space around him. "Not now, David," Olivia was saying, her voice low but intense. We agreed. "Plans change," he replied, his hand briefly touching her waist in a way that seemed too familiar. "Nothing changes," she said firmly. "Not today. Go back to your table." They separated quickly as Walter Pierce approached. Olivia smiled brilliantly at her father, all tension gone from her face like it had never existed. "Everything all right, kitten?" Walter asked. "Perfect, Daddy," she replied, kissing his cheek. "Just catching up with Cousin David." I frowned slightly, watching the man, David, walk away. Something felt off, but I couldn't place it. Later, when I asked Nathan about Olivia's cousin, he seemed surprised. David Harrington. He's not actually her cousin, more like a distant family connection through her mother's side. They grew up in the same social circles. He's her business partner now, I think. Why do you ask? Just curious, I said, patting his arm. Just trying to keep all these new faces straight. The night continued beautiful and joyous. When it was time for the traditional mother-son dance, Nathan led me to the floor as Frank Sinatra's The Way You Look Tonight played, the same song Thomas and I had danced to at our wedding. You doing okay, Mom? Nathan asked softly as we moved slowly across the floor. More than okay, I assured him. I'm happy for you, Nathan. She's lovely. He smiled, the worry lines that had etched themselves around his eyes after Rachel's death, almost invisible now. We're moving into the condo next week. You'll have to come visit once we're settled. Try to keep me away, I teased. That night I returned to my hotel room, slipped off my uncomfortable shoes, and sat on the edge of the bed. The room was quiet, except for the distant hum of Chicago traffic below. I took out Thomas's photo from my purse, the small one I always carry. Well, our boy is married, I whispered to his smiling face. She's beautiful and smart. I think he'll be happy, Thomas. I really do. If I felt a small flutter of unease, a tiny whisper of doubt, I dismissed it as a mother's natural worry. After all, what mother doesn't worry when handing her child's heart to someone else's keeping? Life settled back into its rhythm after the wedding. I returned to Newton, to my roses and book club meetings, to coffee with Martha, and volunteering at the Community Art Center. But now Sundays included not just Nathan's calls, but often Olivia's voice too, both of them sharing stories of their new life together in Chicago. They seemed happy. Nathan sent photos of weekend trips to Michigan's lake shores, of fancy dinner dates where candlelight softened the world around them, of their condo with views of Lake Michigan that stole your breath. He sounded more relaxed, more settled than I'd heard him in years. The team promoted me to lead developer, he told me one Sunday in November. Olivia threw a surprise party to celebrate. That's wonderful, honey, I said, genuinely proud. You've worked so hard. Olivia says I should negotiate for more equity in the company, he added. She's always thinking ahead. That seemed to be true. Olivia was certainly forward-thinking, especially about finances. Over the months following the wedding, she began showing increasing interest in my own financial situation. It started subtly with casual questions during our calls. Eleanor, have you considered upgrading your home insurance? I was reading about how policies for older homes like yours are often inadequate. Or, Nathan mentioned you're still with the same investment manager Thomas used. There are much better options now, especially for retirees. I didn't mind the questions at first. She worked in finance after all. It seemed natural she'd be interested. And truthfully, I hadn't given much thought to my finances since Thomas died. He'd left everything in good order. Our house paid off decent retirement savings, prudent investments. I had enough to live comfortably and help Nathan when needed. But Olivia's questions became more specific, more frequent. The market's shifting, she told me during one call in January. People your age need to be especially careful with their assets. I've never been much of a risk taker with money, I replied. Thomas always said slow and steady wins the race. Times have changed, she said, a slight edge to her voice. What worked in Thomas's day won't work now. You could be missing significant opportunities. By February, her suggestions had become more direct. Eleanor, I'd like to introduce you to our team at Meridian Investments. We specialize in wealth management for people in your situation. My situation? I asked, stirring my tea as we spoke. Retirees with significant assets who want security and growth. We've developed specialized investment vehicles perfect for someone like you. The returns are exceptional. I hesitated. That's very thoughtful, Olivia, but I'm comfortable with my current arrangements. At least let me send you some information, she persisted. Nathan and I worry about you being alone there managing everything yourself. It was the mention of Nathan's concern that weakened my resolve. Was I being stubborn old-fashioned? I agreed to look at the materials. They arrived 2 days later, glossy brochures showcasing Meridian Investments with impressive charts of growth projections and testimonials from satisfied clients. Olivia followed up with a call the same week. What did you think? She asked. Impressive, right? It certainly looks successful, I admitted, though some of the terminology is beyond me. That's why you need us, she said smoothly. Financial management is complex these days. You shouldn't have to worry about it. She suggested I start by moving a portion of my investments to Meridian, just to see how we perform. When I hesitated, she shifted tactics. Nathan and I are both with Meridian. We trust them completely. Wouldn't it be easier if we were all working with the same team? We could help keep an eye on things for you. There was logic to that, and yet something held me back. A lifetime of careful decision-making doesn't vanish with age. Let me think about it, I said finally. This isn't something I want to rush into. I could hear the disappointment in her voice when she answered. Of course, take your time. But don't wait too long. These opportunities don't last forever. After that call, I found myself looking more closely at the Meridian materials. The Boston address was in a prestigious downtown building. The company had an impressive website featuring the same testimonials from the brochure. Everything looked legitimate, professional. And yet a small voice, one that sounded remarkably like Thomas, whispered caution. I decided to ask Martha's opinion during our next coffee date. Olivia's company, Martha said, stirring her cappuccino. Never heard of them, but that doesn't mean anything. My son-in-law works in finance. I could ask him. It's probably fine, I said, already feeling disloyal for questioning. She and Nathan seem to be doing well with them. Martha gave me a long look. Eleanor Thompson, I've known you for 30 years. When you say probably fine in that tone, it means something's bothering you. I sighed. I'm being silly. It's just, she's very persistent about it. Almost like she'll be disappointed in me if I don't agree. It's your money, Martha said firmly. You don't owe anyone an explanation for how you manage it. I nodded, but the conversation stayed with me. Was I being unfair to Olivia? She was only trying to help after all. And if Nathan trusted Meridian with their money, perhaps I was being overly cautious. The next time Olivia called, she had news. Eleanor, I've been promoted. I'm now Senior Investment Advisor at Meridian's Boston office. Boston, I echoed, surprised. I thought you were in Chicago. We have offices in major cities, she explained. I'll be commuting between Chicago and Boston. Isn't that perfect? I can meet with you in person about your portfolio when I'm in town. Her excitement was contagious, and I found myself agreeing to meet her during her next Boston trip. Just to discuss options, I told myself. No commitments. 2 weeks later, we met for lunch at an elegant restaurant near her Boston office. Olivia looked every inch the successful businesswoman. Tailored suit, perfect makeup, confidence radiating from her like heat from a flame. I'm so glad we're doing this, she said, ordering a Sauvignon Blanc while I stuck with water. Nathan is thrilled you're considering Meridian. The mention of Nathan softened my lingering reservations. He'd sounded happy during our last call, proud of Olivia's success and their life together. Over seared scallops and asparagus, Olivia outlined Meridian's approach. Much of it went over my head. Talk of offshore accounts, tax advantages, reinvestment strategies. When I asked questions, she answered quickly, sometimes dismissively. You don't need to understand all the mechanics, Eleanor. That's what we're here for. By dessert, she had a folder open between us, pointing at documents with a manicured finger. These are the preliminary papers, she explained. Nothing binding yet, just allowing us to analyze your current portfolio and make recommendations. I hesitated, pen hovering over the signature line. I'd like to review these at home first, maybe discuss them with Nathan. Something flashed in her eyes, irritation, but it vanished so quickly I thought I'd imagined it. Of course, she said smoothly, closing the folder. Take your time, but do let me know soon. We have a limited enrollment for our premium clients. On the drive home, I felt unsettled. The lunch had been pleasant enough, but Olivia's eagerness felt pressured. I decided to call Nathan that evening instead of waiting for Sunday. Mom, everything okay? He answered, concern in his voice at the unexpected call. Everything's fine, honey. I just had lunch with Olivia today. She told me about her promotion. Congratulations to both of you. Thanks, he said, sounding pleased. It's a big step for her, for us, really. She showed me some investment options with Meridian. I continued carefully. They seem aggressive for someone my age. There was a slight pause before Nathan responded. Olivia knows what she's doing, Mom. Her clients have seen amazing returns this year. I'm sure they have, I said. I just need to think about it a bit more. Of course, he said, his tone lightening. Take your time. But Olivia's really good at what she does. I've never seen returns like we've gotten this year. After we hung up, I sat at my kitchen table, the Meridian folder open before me. The papers were full of complex terms and impressive projections, but something still didn't feel right. Call it intuition, call it an old woman's caution. I decided to sleep on it. In the morning, I'd look at everything with fresh eyes. Perhaps call my current financial advisor for a second opinion. But life, as it often does, had other plans. The morning dawned clear and cool, typical early spring in New England. Daffodils had begun pushing through the soil in my garden, Thomas's favorites. I was kneeling beside them, working the earth with gloved hands when my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number and nearly let it go to voicemail. But something, perhaps fate, perhaps just the persistent chirping, made me pull off a glove and answer. Mrs. Thompson, Eleanor Thompson. A man's voice unfamiliar, tense. Yes, this is Eleanor, I replied, sitting back on my heels. This is Ryan Miller. I was the photographer at Nathan's wedding. I frowned, slightly surprised. Yes, I remember you. Is everything all right? There was a pause then. No, ma'am, I don't think it is. I need to speak with you. In person. It's important. My heart skipped a beat. Is Nathan okay? Has something happened? Your son is fine, Ryan assured me quickly. But there's something you need to see, and please, don't mention this call to Nathan or to Olivia. Cold spread through me despite the morning sun. Mr. Miller. Ryan, please. Ryan, you're frightening me. What is this about? He sighed, the sound crackling through the connection. I can't discuss it over the phone. Can you meet me today if possible? I'm in Boston. I looked down at my gardening clothes, soil embedded under my fingernails. Yes, I suppose I could drive in. Thank you, he said, relief evident in his voice. There's a coffee shop, Bluestone Lane, near Boston Common. Do you know it? I can find it, I said, already mentally calculating the drive time which clothes to change into. 2:00, he suggested. I'll be in the back corner. I have a beard now, but you'll recognize me. After he hung up, I remained kneeling in the garden, phone clutched in my dirt-stained hand. What could be so urgent that a wedding photographer from Chicago needed to see me in person? And why the secrecy? I rose slowly, knees protesting, and went inside to wash up. As I changed into presentable clothes, gray slacks, a blue cardigan, sensible shoes, my mind raced with possibilities, each more concerning than the last. Had Ryan captured something at the wedding that I needed to know? Had something happened between Nathan and Olivia? Was there some problem with the photographs themselves? I applied a touch of lipstick more out of habit than vanity and caught my reflection in the bathroom mirror. The woman looking back had lines of worry etched between her brows, silver hair, neatly styled eyes showing the wisdom and wariness that comes with decades of life's experiences. Whatever it is, I told my reflection, you can handle it. The drive to Boston took longer than expected, traffic snarling near the Longwood Medical area. I found a parking garage near the Common and walked the 2 blocks to Bluestone Lane, arriving 10 minutes past 2. The coffee shop was busy with afternoon customers, students with laptops, business people in hurried meetings, tourists resting tired feet. I scanned the back corners until I spotted him. Ryan Miller, almost unrecognizable, with a full beard, dressed casually in jeans and a gray sweater. His eyes, when they met mine, held something that made my heart stutter. Concern, fear, exhaustion. I wove between tables toward him. He stood as I approached, pulling out a chair for me. Mrs. Thompson, thank you for coming, he said quietly. Eleanor, please, I replied automatically, settling into the chair. You look like you haven't slept in days. A weak smile flickered across his face. Observant, I haven't much. A server appeared and I ordered a simple tea. Ryan already had a coffee, mostly untouched, the surface gone cold and still. So, I said once the server left, folding my hands on the table to keep them from trembling. What's so important that you needed to see me in person, and why all the secrecy? Ryan leaned forward, his voice barely audible above the cafe's ambient noise. I've been editing the final album from Nathan's wedding. High-resolution images, detailed work. He paused. I found something. Several things, actually. Things that concerned me. I waited, holding my breath. Mrs. Eleanor, what do you know about Olivia's relationship with David Harrington? The name registered immediately. The man from the wedding, the one Olivia had been speaking with so intensely. Very little, I admitted. Nathan said he's her business partner, not actually a cousin as I'd thought. Ryan nodded, opening a laptop he'd kept closed on the table. That's part of it, yes. He turned the screen toward me, revealing a photograph from the wedding. Olivia in her beautiful gown, but not with Nathan. She stood in a service hallway near the kitchen arms wrapped around David Harrington, his hand resting at the small of her back. Their posture was intimate, unmistakable. This was not a business relationship, not a family connection. This was something else entirely. My breath caught. When was this taken? During the father-daughter dance, Ryan said quietly. When everyone was watching Walter and Olivia on the dance floor. Except this isn't Olivia. It's her body double. I stared at him, uncomprehending. What bay? Keep looking, he urged, scrolling to another image. More photos appeared. Olivia slipping away during speeches, David following minutes later. Her return hair, slightly mussed lipstick, refreshed. Timestamps documented their movements throughout the reception. I didn't notice while shooting, Ryan explained. I was focused on capturing the main events, the formal moments. It was only in editing that I saw these patterns. I sat back, tea forgotten, a chill settling in my bones despite the cafe's warmth. Why are you showing me this? Why not Nathan? Ryan's eyes, tired, pained, met mine. Because it's worse than an affair. Much worse. He pulled out a folder similar to the one Olivia had shown me, but thicker. After I noticed the photos, something felt wrong. I started looking into Meridian Investments. My stomach tightened. Olivia's company. Ryan nodded grimly. And David Harrington's. They've been running it together for years. It specializes in targeting older investors, particularly those with substantial assets and minimal financial knowledge. What do you mean targeting? I asked, though I was beginning to understand a terrible clarity descending. It's a sophisticated Ponzi scheme, Ryan said bluntly. New investors' money pays returns to earlier investors, creating the illusion of legitimate profits. Meanwhile, Olivia and David siphon millions into offshore accounts. He spread documents before me. Company filings, transfer records, names, and dates. Some papers looked like they'd been accessed through less than official channels. How did you get all this? I asked, overwhelmed by the information before me. Ryan's jaw tightened. My grandmother, he said, voice breaking slightly. She invested with them 2 years ago after meeting Olivia at a charity event in New York. She lost everything, her house, her savings. She died believing she'd failed herself, that she'd made poor choices. His hands clenched. She didn't fail. They stole from her. I reached across the table, covering his fist with my hand. I'm so sorry. He nodded, composing himself. After the wedding, when I recognized Olivia as the same woman who'd charmed my grandmother, I started digging. I couldn't prove anything in time to help my grandmother, but I've been building a case. Does Nathan know any of this? I don't think so, Ryan replied. From what I can tell, he's another pawn. Olivia targets wealthy families, gains their trust, sometimes even marries into them. Nathan was her way in. To you. To me? I echoed, confusion giving way to understanding. My house, my investments. Ryan nodded solemnly. From what I've found, Mrs. Thompson, it looks like you're next on their list. Olivia's been appointed to Meridian's Boston office specifically to handle your account. The room seemed to tilt slightly. The conversations about my finances, the persistent suggestions, the eager pursuit of my business, it all made terrible sense now. Nathan, I whispered, thinking of my son, of the life he thought he was building with this woman. I didn't want to come to you, Ryan admitted. I've been working with a detective in the financial crimes division, but when I found out Olivia was meeting with you about investing, I couldn't wait any longer. The server returned with my tea, and I thanked her automatically, not seeing her, my mind racing through implications, connections, possibilities. Why me? I asked finally. Why not go directly to Nathan? Ryan's expression softened with sympathy. Would you want to hear from a stranger that your spouse was a fraud, that your marriage was built on lies? He deserves better than that. I nodded, slowly understanding. A mother could cushion such a devastating blow. A stranger could not. What happens now? I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. Detective Sarah Donovan wants to meet with you, Ryan replied. Boston PD has been building a case against Meridian for months, but they need more. With your help, they might finally have enough to move forward. My help, I repeated. You mean as a witness? Ryan hesitated, then said quietly, as bait. The word hung between us, heavy with implication. If you agree to invest with Olivia under controlled circumstances with police monitoring, they might catch her in the act. Get her to say things, admit to their methods. I stared at the wedding photo still visible on Ryan's laptop. Olivia, beautiful, poised, deceptive Olivia, in the arms of her co-conspirator while my son stood elsewhere in that grand hotel, believing himself blessed with love. My tea grew cold as Ryan continued explaining what Detective Donovan had proposed. A sting operation with me playing a central role. Recording equipment monitored meetings, careful documentation of every interaction. It was overwhelming, frightening. You don't have to decide now, Ryan said gently. Detective Donovan can explain everything in more detail. I looked up from the scattered papers from the evidence of betrayal and fraud. No, I said, surprising myself with the firmness in my voice. I don't need more time. If Olivia is using my son, if she's hurt people like your grandmother, then she needs to be stopped. Ryan studied me, perhaps seeing something in my expression that reassured him. Are you sure it could be complicated? Dangerous, even. I thought of Nathan's face when he spoke of Olivia, of the hope that had replaced grief in his eyes. I thought of all the people like Ryan's grandmother who had lost everything. I thought of Thomas, who had always told me that courage isn't the absence of fear, but action in its presence. I'm sure, I said, gathering my purse and standing. Tell Detective Donovan I'll meet her tomorrow. And Mr. Miller, Ryan, thank you for coming to me. He nodded, relief evident in the slump of his shoulders. I'll set it up. As I walked back to my car, spring sunshine felt cold on my skin. The world looked different now, shadows lurking where I hadn't seen them before. My hands trembled as I unlocked the car door, but my resolve was firm. Driving home through afternoon traffic, I rehearsed what I would and wouldn't say to Nathan when he called on Sunday. How to act normal when speaking with Olivia. How to protect my son while helping to expose the woman who had targeted him, used him, and would eventually discard him once she had what she wanted. Thomas, I whispered to the empty passenger seat, I wish you were here. I wish you could help me hold him through this. The house was quiet when I returned, shadows lengthening across the lawn. I moved through the rooms, slowly seeing them as Olivia might. Not as a home filled with memories and love, but as assets to be liquidated, investments to be stolen. I made a simple dinner but couldn't eat. Instead, I sat on the porch swing Thomas had built, watching darkness settle over Newton, thinking of the storm that was coming and praying for the strength to weather it. My phone buzzed with a text from Nathan. Love you, Mom. Hope you're doing okay. I stared at the screen, typed deleted, typed again, deleted again. Every response felt too heavy or too hollow, so I wrote simply, love you too, son. Sometimes love is protecting someone from the truth until they're ready to face it. And sometimes love means being strong enough to help them face that truth, no matter how painful. Tomorrow I would meet Detective Donovan. I would agree to whatever plan she proposed. I would be brave for Nathan, for Ryan's grandmother, for all the others who had trusted and lost. Tonight I would prepare myself for what was to come. The photographer had called and everything had changed. But change, even painful change, could be a blessing wearing a rough coat. I had to believe that. For Nathan's sake, I had to believe that truth, however brutal, was better than the prettiest lie. I'll continue with part 2 of the story, aiming for about 6,000 words and following the outline we established. The morning arrived with a soft drizzle pattering against my windows as if Boston itself was weeping for what was to come. I'd barely slept, my mind replaying Ryan's revelations, creating nightmarish scenarios of Nathan's heartbreak when he learned the truth. I rose early, moving through my morning routine by muscle memory. Coffee-brewed toast, left untouched pills taken with methodical precision. Today would require all my strength, all my clarity. I chose my clothes carefully. A navy pantsuit I'd worn to faculty meetings, comfortable shoes, minimal jewelry. Not the confused elderly woman Olivia likely thought me to be, but Eleanor Thompson, retired educator, a woman who had faced loss before and remained standing. The drive to Bluestone Lane felt like traveling to another world. Streets glistened under spring rain, pedestrians huddled under umbrellas, life continuing its normal rhythm while mine had been upended. I parked in the same garage as yesterday, my hands steady on the wheel, though my heart raced beneath my ribs. Ryan was already waiting when I arrived, accompanied by a woman I immediately recognized as a professional. Sharp eyes, direct gaze, the subtle alertness of someone who assessed rooms and people as second nature. She rose as I approached, extending her hand. Mrs. Thompson, I'm Detective Sarah Donovan, Financial Crimes Division, Boston PD. Thank you for coming. Her handshake was firm, her voice low and controlled. I nodded, settling into the chair Ryan pulled out for me. Please call me Eleanor, I said, folding my hands on the table. Ryan has explained some of what's happening, but I have many questions. Sarah nodded, her short dark hair barely moving. I imagine you do. First, let me assure you that everything Ryan has told you has been verified through our investigation. Meridian Investments is indeed operating a sophisticated Ponzi scheme targeting primarily older individuals with significant assets. And my daughter-in-law is at the center of this, I stated rather than ask, the words bitter on my tongue. Yes, Olivia Pierce, although that may not even be her real name, along with David Harrington, has orchestrated similar schemes in at least 5 cities over the past 7 years. Sarah slid a folder across the table. We've been building a case for months, but they're extremely careful. They use shell companies' offshore accounts and a network of seemingly legitimate business connections. I opened the folder, confronted with documents outlining financial transactions, company registrations, and several photographs. One showed Olivia, hair styled differently, wearing glasses, standing beside an elderly man at what appeared to be a charity event. Another showed David entering a bank in Miami. How do they choose their victims? I asked, trying to understand the calculated cruelty of it all. Ryan, who had been silent until now, spoke softly. They look for vulnerability. Recent widows or widowers, retirees with substantial assets but limited financial knowledge, people who might be isolated or eager for connection. Like my grandmother, he added, pain edging his voice. After my grandfather died, she was lonely, financially comfortable, but inexperienced with investments. Olivia befriended her at a hospital charity auction, introduced her to opportunities that seemed legitimate, and he didn't need to finish. I understood. And Nathan? I asked the question that had burned in me since yesterday. Is he part of this? No, Sarah said firmly. We've investigated thoroughly. Your son is another victim, perhaps their most elaborate manipulation yet. Marrying into a family provides unprecedented access and trust. I nodded, relief washing through me. He believes he's happily married. I'm sorry, Ryan said quietly. Truly sorry. I straightened my shoulders. What exactly do you need from me, Detective Donovan? Sarah leaned forward, her manner direct but not unkind. We need evidence of their methods, recorded admissions of their investment structure, clear documentation of fraudulent intent. So far, they've been careful not to leave a paper trail that explicitly proves fraud. And you think I can help provide this? Olivia is pursuing you as an investor, correct? She's been meeting with you, encouraging you to transfer assets to Meridian. Yes, I confirmed. We had lunch 2 weeks ago. She gave me documents to review. Sarah nodded. This gives us an opportunity. If you agree, we would like to set up monitored meetings where you express interest in investing with Meridian. We would equip you with recording devices and coach you on questions to ask that might elicit incriminating responses. You want me to wear a wire? I asked, the phrase sounding absurd coming from my mouth, like something from the crime shows Nathan enjoyed watching. Not exactly like in the movies, Sarah said with a small smile. Modern recording equipment is sophisticated, undetectable. A modified piece of jewelry, perhaps. I touched the simple pearl pendant at my throat, Thomas's last gift. And if she discovers it, if she realizes what's happening, we would have officers nearby at all times, Sarah assured me. Your safety is paramount. If at any point you feel uncomfortable or threatened, we end the operation immediately. I considered her words, imagining myself sitting across from Olivia, pretending interest while secretly recording her deception. The thought was terrifying. And yet what was the alternative? Allow her to continue using my son. Let her escape to target other vulnerable people. What happens to Nathan when this is over? I asked the question that mattered most. When his wife is arrested for fraud, Sarah's expression softened slightly. That will be difficult, no question. But isn't it better he learns the truth now rather than later when she's taken everything and disappeared? Ryan added gently. I've seen what these people do, Eleanor. They don't just take money. They take dignity, security, peace of mind. Your son deserves to know who he really married. I looked down at my hands, the gold band still encircling my left ring finger after all these years. Thomas and I had promised honesty above all else. What would he advise now? I need to see everything, I said, finally looking up at Sarah. Every photograph, every document you have on Olivia and this Meridian operation. If I'm going to do this, I need to be absolutely certain. Sarah nodded, respect evident in her gaze. Of course. Ryan has more evidence on his laptop, and I have additional files in my car. For the next hour, in that quiet corner of Bluestone Lane, I received an education in sophisticated financial fraud. Ryan's photographs revealed a pattern of Olivia and David in intimate situations throughout the wedding reception. Moments stolen when they thought no one was watching. In one particularly damning image, they were caught in what appeared to be an intense argument near the service entrance, David gripping Olivia's arm, her face contorted with anger. "This was during your dance with Nathan," Ryan explained. "Everyone's attention was elsewhere." Sarah provided financial documentation, complex but revealing when properly explained. Meridian's investment structure was designed to create an illusion of remarkable returns while actually funneling money to accounts controlled by Olivia and David. New investors funded payments to earlier clients, creating a facade of legitimacy. They maintained just enough legitimate operations to withstand casual scrutiny, Sarah explained. "That's why we haven't been able to move on them yet. We need clear evidence of intent to defraud." Most disturbing were the profiles of previous victims, elderly individuals who had lost significant portions of their life savings. A retired surgeon in Phoenix, a widowed professor in Seattle, a former business owner in Miami. Lives upended, security, shattered dreams of comfortable retirements or legacies for grandchildren vanished. And then there was the evidence about Olivia herself, or rather the woman who called herself Olivia Pierce. "Her real name is likely Victoria Sloan," Sarah said, showing me documentation. "Though she's used at least 3 other identities that we know of. Harvard Business School records show a Victoria Sloan graduating 15 years ago, but the trail gets murky after that." I stared at the grainy image from a Harvard yearbook, a younger version of the woman my son had married, her eyes already calculating her smile practiced. "And her parents?" I asked, remembering the elegant, imposing Walter and Caroline Pierce. "Actors," Ryan said simply. "Hired for credibility. We believe the real Walter and Caroline Pierce died years ago in a boating accident in the Mediterranean. Their identities were borrowed." The scope of the deception was breathtaking. Not just a simple con, but an elaborate performance spanning years involving multiple accomplices designed to build absolute trust before the final betrayal. "Why go to such lengths?" I murmured. "The wedding alone must have cost a fortune." "Investment," Sarah replied matter-of-factly. "They spend maybe $500,000 on the wedding and surrounding events. But if they gain access to your assets, Nathan's future inheritance, possibly connections to your friends and community, they could extract millions." I thought of my home, worth well over $1 million in the current market. My investment portfolio carefully managed by Thomas and then his trusted advisor for decades. The insurance policies, it was substantial. Not a fortune by Boston standards, but more than enough to make me a worthwhile target. "And Nathan?" I asked again, the question that kept returning like a persistent pain. "What does he get out of this arrangement?" Ryan and Sarah exchanged glances. "From what we can tell," Ryan said gently, "he gets discarded once he's no longer useful. In previous operations, when they've established romantic relationships as part of the con, the relationship ends once the financial objectives are achieved, usually with the victim completely financially drained." I closed my eyes briefly, imagining Nathan devastated not just by betrayal, but by financial ruin as well. My son, who had already suffered the loss of his first love to death, now facing the knowledge that his second love had never been real at all. When I opened my eyes, my decision was made. "Tell me what I need to do." I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "If this will protect Nathan and stop these people from hurting others, I'll do whatever is necessary." Sarah nodded, her expression somber but approving. "We'll need to move quickly. First, contact Olivia and express interest in investing with Meridian. Suggest a meeting at their Boston office. Meanwhile," Ryan added, "we'll prepare the recording equipment and brief you thoroughly on what questions to ask, what to look for." "And Nathan?" I asked. "What do I tell him?" Sarah shook her head slightly. "For now, nothing. The fewer people who know about this operation, the better. If Nathan suspects something and inadvertently tips off Olivia—" I nodded, understanding the necessity, even as my heart ached at the thought of keeping such a secret from my son. "How soon do we do this?" "Call her today," Sarah advised. "The sooner we move, the less chance they have to target someone else." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on my shoulders. "All right, I'll call her when I get home." As we prepared to leave, Ryan touched my arm gently. "Mrs. Thompson, Eleanor, thank you. I know this isn't easy." I gave him a small smile. "Nothing worthwhile ever is, Ryan." The rain had stopped by the time I drove home, weak sunshine breaking through clouds, a metaphor for hope I wasn't yet ready to embrace. As I entered my quiet house, I felt changed, as if the Eleanor who had left this morning was not quite the same woman who returned. I stood in my living room looking at the photographs that chronicled my life. Wedding pictures with Thomas Nathan's graduation family holidays, moments of genuine joy preserved in silver frames. And I thought about the wedding album Olivia and Nathan would receive, filled with beautiful images of a ceremony built on lies. With hands that trembled only slightly, I picked up my phone and dialed Olivia's number. "Eleanor, what a lovely surprise." Olivia's voice flowed through the phone like warm honey practiced and perfect. I wondered how I had never noticed the calculation beneath the charm. "Hello, Olivia," I replied, keeping my tone light conversational. "I've been thinking about our lunch about Meridian." "Oh." I could hear the immediate interest, the slight quickening of her breath. "Have you had a chance to review the materials I left with you?" "I have," I said, moving to sit at my kitchen table, the afternoon sun casting long shadows across the floor. "I think I'd like to discuss the possibilities further. Perhaps at your office where you could walk me through everything in detail." "That would be wonderful," she said, barely concealing her eagerness. "I have some time tomorrow afternoon if that works for you, say 3 o'clock. I agreed, made note of the address, though I already knew it from Sarah's files, and exchanged pleasantries about Nathan before ending the call. My hand shook slightly as I set down the phone. It had begun. I called Sarah immediately after confirming the appointment. She arranged to meet me early the next morning to prepare me for the meeting and fit me with the recording equipment. "Try to get some rest," she advised. "Tomorrow will be challenging." Rest, however, proved elusive. I moved through my evening routine like a sleepwalker. Dinner barely touched a book opened but unread, the news playing in the background without registering. At 9, Nathan called unexpectedly. "Mom, just checking in. Did you have a chance to look at those Meridian materials yet?" I gripped the phone tighter. "Yes, actually. I'm meeting with Olivia tomorrow to discuss them further." "Really?" His surprise was evident. "That's great. I told her you'd come around. The returns they're generating are incredible, Mom. It would be good for us all to be working with the same team." "That's what Olivia said," I replied, struggling to keep my voice normal while my heart ached for him. "You okay? You sound tired." "Just a busy day," I assured him. "Martha and I toured that new art exhibition at the MFA. You know how she loves to analyze every brushstroke." The lie came easily, surprising me. I had never been one for deception, had taught Nathan the value of honesty from childhood. Yet here I was fabricating a day that never happened to protect him from a truth he wasn't ready to face. "Get some sleep then," he said, affection warming his voice. "And let me know how it goes with Olivia. She really wants to help, you know." "I know," I said softly. "Good night, Nathan. I love you." "Love you too, Mom." I sat in the darkness after hanging up Thomas's photograph on the side table, catching the moonlight. "What am I doing?" I whispered to his silent image. "Is this right?" No answer came, of course. Just the quiet ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall, counting seconds toward an inevitable confrontation. Morning arrived after a night of fitful sleep. I dressed with care. A cream blouse, charcoal skirt, low heels. Professional, but not intimidating. The kind of outfit a moderately successful retired teacher might wear to an important financial meeting. Sarah arrived at 10, accompanied by a female officer introduced simply as Lisa, who would help with the technical aspects of the operation. They had brought coffee and pastries, an oddly normal touch for such an extraordinary circumstance. "How are you feeling?" Sarah asked as Lisa unpacked equipment on my dining room table. "Like an imposter," I admitted. "I've never been a good actress." "You don't need to act," Sarah said, surprising me. "The best undercover work comes from being as authentic as possible. Be yourself, a concerned investor, cautious but interested. Your natural hesitation will seem perfectly normal." For the next 2 hours, they prepared me. Lisa attached a sophisticated recording device to the underside of my watch, a slightly bulky timepiece Thomas had given me on our 30th anniversary. The microphone itself was virtually invisible, disguised as a decorative element. "It will capture everything within about 15 feet, Lisa explained. "Just keep your hands natural on the table when possible." Sarah coached me on questions to ask, phrases that might elicit incriminating responses. Ask about the flow of money, where exactly it goes, how returns are generated so quickly. Push for specifics if she tries to be vague. They showed me photographs of the Meridian office layout, explained that officers would be stationed nearby, in the building itself, and in surveillance vehicles on the street. If at any point you feel unsafe, Sarah emphasized, use the phrase, "I should consult my accountant first." That's our signal to end the meeting and extract you. By 1 o'clock, I felt as prepared as I could be, though my stomach churned with anxiety. Sarah checked the recording equipment one final time, then squeezed my hand. "You can do this, Eleanor. Remember why we're doing it. For your son, for others who might be victimized." I nodded, gathering my purse and the Meridian documents Olivia had given me weeks ago. "Let's go then." The Meridian offices occupied the 15th floor of a gleaming tower in Boston's financial district. The reception area exuded wealth and confidence. Marble floors, abstract art, fresh orchids on a sleek desk where a poised young woman greeted visitors. Everything designed to communicate success and stability. "Mrs. Thompson," the receptionist smiled. "Ms. Pierce is expecting you. Please follow me." I was led down a hallway lined with impressive-looking certificates and awards, all fabricated, I now knew, to a corner office with views of Boston Harbor. Olivia rose from behind a substantial desk as I entered, her smile warm and practiced. "Eleanor, thank you so much for coming. Please sit." She gestured to comfortable leather chairs arranged around a small conference table near the window. "Can I offer you anything? Water, coffee, tea?" "Water would be fine, thank you," I replied, setting my purse on the table, conscious of the recording device at my wrist. Olivia poured water from a crystal carafe, her movements elegant and precise. Today she wore a tailored navy suit, diamond studs at her ears, her dark hair pulled back in a sleek chignon. Every inch the successful financial advisor. "I was so pleased when you called," she said, taking a seat across from me. "I know this is an important decision. Nathan will be thrilled." The mention of my son sent a flicker of anger through me, but I maintained my composure. "Yes. Well, he speaks very highly of your expertise. We've done quite well for him," she agreed, opening a folder she'd prepared. "Now you mentioned wanting to understand the Meridian approach in more detail." I nodded, taking a sip of water to steady myself. "Before I consider moving any of my investments, I'd like to understand exactly how you generate such impressive returns. My current advisor has always emphasized that high returns typically involve high risk." Something flickered in Olivia's eyes, perhaps surprise at the directness of my question, but her smile remained fixed. "That's conventional wisdom, certainly, but at Meridian we've developed strategies that challenge those outdated models." She launched into a carefully crafted explanation involving global markets, algorithmic trading, and unique positioning that allowed Meridian to capitalize on opportunities others miss. The language was impressive, designed to sound sophisticated while revealing nothing of substance. I listened attentively, asking occasional questions as Sarah had coached me, noting how Olivia skillfully deflected requests for specifics. After about 20 minutes of this dance, I decided to push harder. "This all sounds impressive, Olivia, but I'm still not clear on how exactly my money would be used. When you say unique positioning, what precisely does that mean?" Her smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "It means we have access to investment vehicles not available to typical retail investors or even standard financial advisors." "What kind of vehicles?" I pressed. "Stocks, bonds, real estate." "A proprietary mix," she replied smoothly. "Our strategy involves moving capital through various international markets to maximize tax efficiency and regulatory advantages." I frowned slightly as if confused. "Tax efficiency sounds like offshore accounts. Is that legal?" "Completely legal," she assured me quickly. "We operate within all applicable regulations. It's simply a matter of understanding the global financial landscape and utilizing the most advantageous structures." I nodded slowly, then asked the question Sarah had emphasized. "And how are returns generated so quickly? My current investments take years to show significant growth." Olivia leaned forward, lowering her voice slightly as if sharing a valuable secret. "The key is our investor pool, Eleanor. We maintain a carefully curated group of high-net-worth individuals who provide the capital necessary for these sophisticated strategies. New investment allows us to expand our positions and generate immediate returns." There it was, the classic Ponzi structure using new investors' money to pay earlier investors, creating the illusion of profitability. I felt a chill despite the well-heated office. "So my investment would be pooled with others?" I asked innocently. "Precisely. It's the collective power of our investor community that enables such remarkable performance." I pretended to consider this, glancing out at the harbor view. And where exactly would my funds be held? Which institution? For the first time, Olivia hesitated fractionally. We work with several international banking partners. Your funds would be distributed across a network of secure accounts to maximize both safety and return potential. Could I have a list of these banks? They change periodically based on market conditions, she replied, deflection smooth as silk. But I can assure you, all are top-tier institutions with impeccable security protocols. I nodded again, then asked, I understand you've worked with several clients like me, retirees looking to maximize their portfolios. How have they fared with Meridian? Olivia brightened, clearly relieved by the change of subject. Wonderfully. In fact, one of our most successful clients was a retired professor from Seattle, Dr. Marion Winters. She came to us with a similar portfolio to yours and has seen nearly 30% growth in just 18 months. I recognized the name from Sarah's files. Dr. Winters had lost over $2 million and was now living with her daughter, her retirement decimated. That's remarkable, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. Is there any way I could speak with Dr. Winters? I'd feel more comfortable hearing from someone in a similar situation. A flash of something, alarm, crossed Olivia's face before her professional mask returned. Dr. Winters is actually traveling extensively at the moment, enjoying her investment returns. She laughed lightly. But I'd be happy to put you in touch with other satisfied clients. I'd appreciate that, I said, knowing the offer was empty. The meeting continued for another 30 minutes, a careful dance of questions and partial answers. Olivia grew more confident as time passed, perhaps sensing my apparent interest. She brought out more documents, impressive charts, glossy projections, testimonials from clients who likely didn't exist. So, she said, finally sliding a different folder toward me. Are you ready to take the next step? These are the preliminary transfer documents. We recommend starting with a portion of your portfolio, perhaps 30%, to see how you feel about the performance. I took the folder, opening it slowly. Inside were forms authorizing Meridian to access and transfer funds from my existing accounts. The requested amount was nearly $400,000, a starter investment that would devastate most retirees. This seems substantial for an initial investment, I remarked, paging through the documents. It's actually quite conservative, Olivia countered smoothly. Many of our clients begin with much larger positions, but we understand your caution, Eleanor. It's natural. I looked up at her, studying the face my son loved, wondering how someone so young could be so calculating, so devoid of conscience. And if I wanted to withdraw my funds at some point, how quickly could that happen? Another minute hesitation. We typically request a 60-day notice for significant withdrawals. It allows us to unwind positions properly without disrupting the strategy. Translation: they needed time to find new victims to pay existing investors who wanted out. I see, I said, closing the folder. And Nathan's investments, they're structured the same way. Exactly the same, she confirmed. In fact, he increased his position just last month. He's very pleased with the results. My heart ached at the thought of Nathan pouring more of his savings into this fraudulent scheme, trusting this woman completely. This is a significant decision, I said after a moment. I'd like to take these documents home, review them carefully. Of course, Olivia said, though I detected a note of disappointment. She'd clearly hoped for an immediate commitment. Take your time, but don't wait too long. We're limiting new investors this quarter to maintain our optimal capital ratio. The fictional scarcity tactic. Create urgency by suggesting limited availability. I recognized it from Sarah's briefing. I understand, I said, rising and gathering my purse. I'll review everything and call you next week. Olivia stood as well, extending her hand. I'm so glad we had this conversation, Eleanor. I know this is the beginning of a very rewarding relationship, for all of us. Her hand felt cold in mine, her grip firm and confident. I forced a smile. Thank you for your time, Olivia. As I turned to leave, the office door opened abruptly. David Harrington stood in the doorway, surprise registering on his face when he saw me. Oh, he said, recovering quickly. I didn't realize you had a meeting. David, Olivia said, a subtle tension entering her voice. This is Eleanor Thompson, Nathan's mother. Eleanor, this is David Harrington, our senior partner. We've met briefly, I said, extending my hand. At the wedding. His smile didn't reach his eyes as he shook my hand. Of course. Nathan's mother. How lovely to see you again. Up close, he was more intimidating than I remembered. Tall, impeccably dressed in what was clearly a bespoke suit, his silver-streaked hair perfectly styled. His eyes, however, were cold, assessing me with a calculating intensity that made my skin crawl. "Mrs. Thompson is considering joining the Meridian family." Olivia explained, her tone professional, but with an undercurrent I couldn't quite identify. "Excellent," David replied, releasing my hand. "You couldn't be in better hands than Olivia's. She has a remarkable talent for understanding clients' needs." "I'm sure she does," I thought grimly. "I should let you get to your meeting," I said, moving toward the door. "Thank you again, Olivia." David stepped aside to let me pass, but not before I noticed him giving Olivia a look that contained both question and warning. As I walked down the hallway toward the reception area, I heard the office door close firmly behind me. In the elevator down to the lobby, I released a shaky breath, acutely aware of the recording device at my wrist. Had I gotten what Sarah needed? Had Olivia said enough to incriminate herself? Outside on the street, I walked half a block before a nondescript sedan pulled alongside me, the rear door opening. Sarah sat inside, gesturing for me to join her. "Well done," she said as soon as the door closed behind me. "You were excellent." "Did I get what you needed?" I asked anxiously as the car pulled away from the curb. "We're reviewing the audio now," she replied, indicating a technician in the front passenger seat who was wearing headphones. "But yes, I think there's usable material." She was quite explicit about using new investor funds to pay returns. That's textbook Ponzi structure. I slumped against the seat, suddenly exhausted. David Harrington appeared at the end. I wasn't expecting that. Sarah's expression sharpened. "That's unusual. He typically stays well removed from client meetings. He seemed surprised to see me, and there was definitely tension between them when he arrived." Sarah made a note on her tablet. "Interesting. We'll analyze that interaction carefully." We drove to a small office building several blocks away where I was escorted to a conference room. Ryan was waiting along with several other individuals Sarah introduced as part of the investigative team. The recording was already being analyzed, segments flagged and transcribed. "You did remarkably well," Ryan told me as someone brought me tea. "Better than most trained operatives on their first assignment." "I didn't feel remarkable," I admitted. "I felt terrified and angry all at once." "That's normal," Sarah assured me. "But you maintained perfect composure." For the next hour, we reviewed the recording with the team, highlighting particularly incriminating statements. Olivia's explanation of their investment structure, her evasiveness about banking partners, her mention of Dr. Winters and claims about her success. "This gives us a lot to work with," Sarah said, "but we need more. Specifically, we need her to explicitly acknowledge moving money between accounts in a way that constitutes fraud." "So we do this again?" I asked, both dreading and determined. Sarah nodded. "If you're willing. Next time we'll suggest you're ready to commit but want more details about exactly how your money will be handled." "And if David Harrington is there?" "Even better," Sarah said grimly. "He's the primary target. Olivia is significant, but David is the mastermind." As the team continued their analysis, Ryan pulled me aside. "Are you really okay with doing this again? It's not too late to step back." I thought of Nathan, of the life he thought he was building, of the devastating fall that awaited him. "I'm okay," I said with more confidence than I felt. "I need to see this through." "You're braver than most people half your age," he said quietly. I shook my head. "Not brave, just a mother protecting her child." It was nearly 7 when Sarah finally drove me back to my car, still parked near the Meridian offices. The day had faded into evening lights flickering on across the city. "Call Olivia tomorrow," Sarah instructed. "Tell her you've reviewed the materials and are interested in proceeding but have a few more questions. Request another meeting, preferably late next week, to give us time to prepare." I nodded, exhaustion settling into my bones. "And Nathan? What do I tell him when he calls on Sunday?" Sarah's expression softened slightly. "That's the hardest part, isn't it? For now, just say you're still considering Meridian, that you have some questions. Keep it vague, but not suspicious." "How much longer will this continue?" I asked, one hand on the car door. "If our next meeting goes well, hopefully not much longer. We're building a solid case, Eleanor. You're helping make that possible." I drove home through evening traffic, streetlights blurring occasionally when tears threatened. The weight of deception, necessary deception, pressed heavily on me. I had never lied to Nathan, not about anything that mattered. Now I was at the center of an operation that would shatter his world, and I couldn't even warn him. As I pulled into my driveway, I noticed a light on in my living room, a light I was certain I hadn't left on. Heart racing, I parked and approached my front door cautiously. It was unlocked. Pushing it open slowly, I prepared to retreat and call Sarah. Then a familiar voice called out, "Mom, that you?" Nathan stepped into the hallway, smiling broadly. "Surprise, I flew in for a quick visit." My son stood in my entryway, his face alight with affection, unaware that his world was about to collapse. And I, the mother who had always protected him, was helping build the wrecking ball. "Nathan?" I managed, hoping my shock appeared as pleasant surprise rather than horror. "What are you doing here? Is everything all right?" He stepped forward to embrace me, his familiar height and scent momentarily overwhelming me with both love and dread. "Everything's fine," he assured me, taking my purse and hanging it on the hook by the door, a habit from childhood. "I had to come to Boston unexpectedly for work, a client emergency, and thought I'd surprise you. Olivia mentioned you met with her today about Meridian." Of course she had. I should have anticipated this. "Yes," I said carefully, moving into the kitchen to put distance between us, needing a moment to compose myself. "We had a good meeting. I'm still processing everything she shared." Nathan followed, leaning against the counter as I filled the kettle, a mundane action to steady my trembling hands. "She was impressed with your questions. Said you were sharper than most new clients." I managed a smile. "High praise indeed. So what do you think? Are you going to move forward with them?" I focused on selecting tea bags, avoiding his direct gaze. "I'm considering it. Their returns are certainly impressive, but I have a few more questions before making any decisions." Nathan nodded, seemingly satisfied with this response. "That's fair. Take your time. But honestly, Mom, Olivia is brilliant at what she does. Our portfolio has grown nearly 20% since we started with Meridian." "Only because they're showing you fictional numbers," I thought sadly. "How long are you in town?" I asked, changing the subject as the kettle began to whistle. "Just overnight. My meeting's early tomorrow, then I fly back to Chicago tomorrow evening. Olivia's sorry she couldn't join me. She has client meetings scheduled all day." "That's a shame," I lied, pouring hot water over tea bags, profoundly relieved that Olivia wasn't with him. I wasn't sure I could maintain this facade in her presence, knowing what I now knew. We moved to the living room with our tea, settling into the comfortable routine of mother and son. Nathan talked about his work projects, about the Chicago spring that was finally emerging after a brutal winter, about a new restaurant he and Olivia had discovered near their condo. I listened, asked appropriate questions, smiled at his jokes, all while acutely aware of the secret I carried, the recording device still attached to my watch, the meeting I'd just come from where his wife's criminal activities had been dissected and analyzed. "Mom," Nathan's voice cut through my thoughts. "You seem distracted. Are you feeling okay?" I forced a smile. "Just tired. It's been a busy day." He studied me with concern. "You'd tell me if something was wrong, right?" The irony of his question nearly undid me. I reached for his hand, squeezing it gently. "Of course I would. Is it the Meridian thing? Is that bothering you? Because there's absolutely no pressure. Olivia just wants to help make sure you're getting the best returns possible." I shook my head. "It's not that. Just normal aging stuff. Didn't sleep well last night, that's all." He seemed to accept this explanation, and the conversation shifted to his plans for the summer, a possible trip to the Cape in July. "You'll come too, of course," he said. "We'll get a place with enough room for all of us." I nodded, wondering where Olivia would be by July, still pretending to be his loving wife or exposed and facing charges. The thought made me slightly nauseated. "I should probably head to bed," I said finally, unable to maintain the charade any longer. "It's been a long day." Nathan looked disappointed but understanding. "Sure, Mom. I've got some work emails to catch up on anyway. We'll have breakfast together before I head out tomorrow." "Absolutely," I promised, rising from my chair. He stood as well, embracing me again. "Love you, Mom. It's good to see you." "Love you too," I whispered, holding him perhaps a moment longer than usual, drawing strength from his solid presence. In my bedroom, I carefully removed the recording device from my watch, securing it in the small container Sarah had provided to be returned to her tomorrow. Then I sat on the edge of my bed, the weight of the day finally crashing down on me. Nathan was in my house, just down the hall, happily going about his life, completely unaware that his marriage was a fraud, his wife a criminal, his mother now involved in an undercover operation to expose them both. I changed into my nightgown with mechanical movements, performed my nightly routine without conscious thought, and finally slipped beneath the covers, though sleep seemed an impossibility. How had it come to this? Just a week ago, my biggest concern had been whether to replace the aging dishwasher or try once more to have it repaired. Now I was at the center of a financial crimes investigation, wearing wires, recording conversations, lying to my only child. I reached for Thomas's photograph on my nightstand. "What would you do?" I whispered to his smiling image. "How do I protect him from this?" No answer came, of course. Just the distant sound of Nathan's voice as he conducted a work call in the guest room, the normal mundane sound breaking my heart with its innocence. I must have fallen asleep eventually because I woke to sunlight streaming through the curtains and the smell of coffee brewing. Nathan had always been an early riser. When I entered the kitchen, he was at the stove making French toast, his favorite breakfast from childhood. "Morning, Mom," he said cheerfully. "Hope I didn't wake you. Thought I'd make breakfast before I head out." "You didn't wake me," I assured him, pouring myself coffee from the pot he'd prepared. "This is a nice surprise." We ate together at the kitchen table, morning sun warming the room, conversation flowing easily about nothing important. In these moments, I could almost forget what was coming, could almost pretend this was simply a normal visit from my son. But reality intruded when his phone chimed with a message. He glanced at it, smiled, and said, "Olivia says to tell you hello. She's hoping you'll call her with any other questions about Meridian." I nodded, taking a sip of coffee to hide my expression. "I'll do that." All too soon, it was time for Nathan to leave for his meeting. I walked him to the door, accepting his goodbye hug, promising to call soon, waving from the porch as he drove away. When his car disappeared around the corner, I sank onto the porch swing, no longer needing to maintain the facade, letting the tears finally come. For several minutes, I sat there crying silently, mourning the pain that was coming for my son, hating that I couldn't shield him from it. Finally wiping my eyes, I went inside to call Sarah. She answered immediately. "Eleanor, is everything all right?" "Nathan showed up at my house last night," I said without preamble. "He was in Boston for work. Olivia told him about our meeting." Sarah was silent for a moment. "Did he seem suspicious? Did he say anything that would indicate Olivia might be concerned?" "No," I replied. "Quite the opposite. He was encouraging me to move forward with Meridian. Sarah, this is destroying me, lying to him knowing what's coming." Her voice softened slightly. "I understand. This is the hardest part of what we do, the collateral damage to innocent people. But remember, Eleanor, Nathan is already a victim. He just doesn't know it yet. That doesn't make it easier." "No," she agreed. "It doesn't. Do you want to step back?" "We can find another approach if this is too difficult." I considered the offer for a moment, the temptation to walk away to return to blissful ignorance. But that wouldn't protect Nathan in the end. It would only delay the inevitable, perhaps make it worse. "No," I said finally. "I'll see this through, but I need it to be over as quickly as possible." "I understand," Sarah said. "In that case, call Olivia today. Schedule the next meeting for early next week rather than waiting. Let's move this forward." After ending the call, I sat at my kitchen table staring at the breakfast dishes Nathan had insisted on washing before he left. Such a small, thoughtful gesture from the boy I'd raised to be a good man. A boy now grown whose heart was going to be shattered. With a deep breath, I picked up my phone and dialed Olivia's number, steeling myself for another performance in this terrible play. "Eleanor," she answered warmly. "Nathan said he saw you last night. How lovely that he was able to visit." "Yes, it was a nice surprise," I replied, amazed at how normal my voice sounded. "Olivia, I've been reviewing the materials you gave me yesterday. I think I'm ready to move forward, but I have a few more specific questions. Would it be possible to meet again early next week?" "Absolutely," she replied, enthusiasm evident in her voice. "I could do Monday afternoon." "That would be perfect," I said, feeling anything but perfect. "Same time, 3 o'clock. "I'll put it in my calendar right now," she said. "I'm so pleased, Eleanor. This is going to be wonderful for you." As I hung up, I wondered if she actually believed that. If somewhere beneath the fraud and deception Olivia Pierce or Victoria Sloan or whoever she really was had convinced herself she was providing a valuable service. Or if the lie came as easily to her as breathing with no thought for the lives she destroyed. I spent the weekend in a state of suspended animation, going through the motions of normal life. Watering plants, doing laundry, attending my book club meeting where I couldn't focus on a single word of discussion, all while carrying the weight of what was to come. Sunday evening, Nathan called as usual. I answered with forced cheerfulness, listening to his weekend activities, sharing sanitized versions of my own, agreeing that yes, I was looking forward to my Monday meeting with Olivia, and no, I wasn't nervous about making changes to my investments. Olivia's really excited about working with you, he said before we hung up. She thinks you're going to be very happy with Meridian. I'm sure she does, I replied, the double meaning of my words lost on him. Monday morning dawned bright and clear. Sarah and Lisa arrived at 9 to prepare me for the afternoon meeting. This time the recording device was disguised as a decorative pin on my lapel, even more discreet than the watch had been. The plan is the same, Sarah explained as Lisa adjusted the equipment. But this time push harder for specifics about how they move money between accounts. That's where we need clarity to establish intent to defraud. And if Harrington appears again, even better. Try to engage him directly if possible. He's less practiced with clients more likely to slip up. By 2:30 I was ready as I could be for another performance. Sarah drove me to the financial district, stopping a block from the Meridian building. Remember, we'll have officers inside and outside the building. Use the signal phrase if you feel threatened in any way. I nodded, smoothing my jacket, feeling the small weight of the recording pin. I just want this to be over. With any luck, it will be soon, Sarah replied. Good luck, Eleanor. I walked the block to the Meridian building, head-high steps, measured heart racing beneath my composed exterior. This time I knew exactly what I was walking into. A den of predators with Nathan unwittingly in their midst. And I, a 68-year-old former art teacher, was the unlikely weapon being deployed against them. The same receptionist greeted me, escorted me to Olivia's office. But this time, as the door opened, I was met not just by Olivia's smiling face, but by David Harrington's calculating gaze as well. They were waiting for me together, a united front of practiced deception. Eleanor, Olivia said warmly, rising to greet me. How wonderful to see you again. You remember David? Of course, I replied, extending my hand to him, hiding my surprise at his presence. Mr. Harrington. His grip was firm, his smile professionally warm, but eyes assessing. Please call me David. Olivia tells me you're considering joining our Meridian family. I wanted to be here personally to answer any questions you might have. I settled into the same chair as before, acutely aware of the recording device at my lapel, of the fact that every word was being captured, that officers were positioned throughout the building. That's very kind, I said, folding my hands in my lap to hide their slight tremor. I do have quite a few questions before I commit. Olivia and David exchanged a brief glance, satisfaction perhaps at having landed another victim, or maybe something else, something I couldn't quite interpret. We're here to help, David said smoothly, his voice cultured, confident. What would you like to know? I took a deep breath, steadying myself for what was to come. Everything, I said simply. I want to understand exactly what happens to my money once it leaves my accounts. David smiled, leaning forward slightly. An excellent question. Let me walk you through the entire process. And so began the most important performance of my life. One that would either help bring these predators to justice or leave them free to continue destroying lives, including my son's. I'll now complete the story with part 3, aiming for approximately 4,000 words as requested. David Harrington leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled beneath his chin, regarding me with a calculated smile that never reached his eyes. The sunlight streaming through the office windows illuminated the silver in his perfectly styled hair, lending him an air of distinguished authority. The process is quite elegant in its simplicity, Eleanor. He began, his voice smooth as aged scotch. When you transfer funds to Meridian, they first enter what we call our capital allocation pool. From there, they're strategically distributed across multiple investment channels. I nodded attentively, aware of the recording device at my lapel capturing every word. And these channels are a proprietary mix, he replied, echoing Olivia's earlier vagueness. Private equity opportunities, forex positions, emerging market funds, all carefully selected for optimal performance. I understand the general concept, I said, keeping my voice measured. But I'd like to know specifically where my money goes. Which banks hold these accounts? Which markets exactly? David and Olivia exchanged another glance, brief but revealing. I was pushing harder than their typical elderly client. We work primarily with financial institutions in Singapore, the Cayman Islands, and Liechtenstein, David offered, perhaps sensing my resolve. These jurisdictions offer certain efficiencies. Tax efficiencies, I asked innocently. Among others, he acknowledged with a slight nod. The global financial system rewards those who understand its nuances, Eleanor. I leaned forward slightly. And once my money is in these offshore accounts, what happens next? How are these remarkable returns actually generated? Olivia interjected smoothly. Our investment algorithm identifies opportunities across multiple markets simultaneously. When favorable conditions align, we execute rapid trades that capture value others miss. That sounds impressive, I said, but rather vague. Could you walk me through a specific example? Perhaps with actual numbers. David's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. Olivia tells me you were an art teacher, not a financial professional. The technical details might be... I may have taught art, Mr. Harrington, I interrupted gently, but I've managed my own investments since my husband died. I'm perfectly capable of understanding financial mechanisms when properly explained. A flash of something irritation respect crossed his face before his professional mask returned. Of course, he conceded. Let me give you a simplified example. What followed was a deliberately convoluted explanation involving currency exchange rate differentials, market timing, and something he called liquidity arbitrage. It sounded sophisticated but explained nothing about how real returns were generated. I listened patiently, then asked the question Sarah had emphasized. So if I invest $400,000 today, where exactly does that money go tomorrow? Which specific investments would it purchase? David's pause was slight but noticeable. Initially, your capital would support our current position in several high-performing funds. As existing investments mature, we would reallocate to new opportunities. So my money would pay returns to existing clients while waiting for new investment opportunities. I clarified, intentionally simplifying his explanation to its essential and illegal structure. That's an oversimplification, he said carefully. But yes, your capital immediately joins our active investment pool. Olivia jumped in, perhaps sensing danger. What David means is that your money becomes part of our overall strategy immediately, rather than sitting idle. I nodded as if satisfied, then pivoted. And if I wanted to withdraw my funds, say after 6 months? As we discussed previously, we request 60 days' notice for significant withdrawals, Olivia replied smoothly. It allows us to properly unwind positions. And if several clients wanted to withdraw simultaneously, I pressed. David's eyes narrowed slightly. That rarely happens. Our clients typically stay with us for years given our performance, but we maintain sufficient liquidity to handle reasonable withdrawal requests. What percentage of assets would you consider reasonable? I asked. Another glance between them. 10 to 15% of our total holdings, David said finally. Though again, we've never faced a situation requiring even that much liquidity. Because new victims keep supplying fresh funds, I thought grimly. I see, I said, reaching into my purse for the documents Olivia had given me last time. I've reviewed these transfer forms, but I noticed they direct funds through several intermediate accounts before reaching Meridian. Why is that necessary? David leaned forward slightly. Regulatory efficiency, Eleanor. Different jurisdictions have different reporting requirements. Our structure optimizes compliance while minimizing unnecessary oversight. Unnecessary oversight, I repeated softly. That's an interesting phrase. Something shifted in David's expression, a momentary calculation, a reassessment. Perhaps redundant would be more accurate. We're fully compliant with all applicable laws. I smiled politely, though inside I was seething at his arrogance. Of course. One more question if you don't mind. My son Nathan is his investment structured the same way, identical, Olivia confirmed quickly. We treat all our clients with the same care and strategy. And he's seen consistent returns, I asked, though I already knew the answer. Absolutely, she said, her face softening in what appeared to be genuine affection. Nathan's portfolio has performed exceptionally well. He's very pleased. The practiced sincerity in her expression as she spoke of my son made my stomach turn. How could she sit there discussing the man she had married under false pretenses with such calculated warmth? I'm glad to hear it, I said, managing to keep my voice steady. Family is everything, isn't it? Indeed, David agreed, his smile never reaching his eyes. Which is why we're particularly pleased when family members join Meridian together. It creates a certain alignment of interests. I held his gaze, allowing a beat of silence before responding. Yes, I imagine it does. The tension in the room had shifted subtly. I could feel David watching me more closely, perhaps sensing something not quite right in my questions or demeanor. It was time to move toward closure. "Well," I said, gathering my purse, "this has been very informative. I think I have what I need to make my decision." "Wonderful," Olivia said, brightening. "Then you're ready to proceed." I nodded, offering what I hoped appeared to be a smile of capitulation. "I believe I am. I'd like to start with the amount we discussed, $400,000, but before I sign anything final, I should consult my accountant first." The signal phrase. Sarah had told me to use it if I felt unsafe or had obtained sufficient information. Given David's increasingly suspicious scrutiny, it seemed prudent. Olivia's smile faltered slightly. "Your accountant, is that necessary? Our documents are quite comprehensive." "Just a formality," I assured her. Thomas always insisted on having Gordon review any significant financial decisions. Old habits. "Of course," David said smoothly, rising from his chair. "Due diligence is always wise. Though I'm sure your accountant will confirm what we've discussed. Meridian offers unparalleled opportunity for someone in your position." "I expect he will," I replied, standing as well. "I'll be in touch next week after we've spoken." Olivia escorted me to the door, her smile professionally fixed but eyes betraying disappointment at the delay. "I'll look forward to your call, Eleanor." As I walked down the hallway toward reception, I heard the office door close behind me. Almost immediately, muffled voices rose in what sounded like an argument. I slowed my pace, straining to hear but could discern only tone, not words. The receptionist smiled as I passed. "Have a lovely afternoon, Mrs. Thompson." "Thank you," I replied automatically, my mind already processing the meeting, wondering if I'd gotten what Sarah needed. Outside, the spring afternoon had turned cloudy, a cool breeze carrying hints of approaching rain. I walked briskly to the corner where Sarah had said to meet her, my heartbeat finally slowing as the Meridian building receded behind me. A black SUV pulled alongside me, the rear door opening to reveal Sarah's concerned face. "Are you all right?" she asked as I slid into the seat beside her. "Yes," I replied, suddenly exhausted now that the performance was over. Though I think David was becoming suspicious toward the end. Sarah nodded, turning to the technician in the front seat, who was already reviewing the recording. "What do we have?" "Initial assessment looks promising," the young woman replied, not looking up from her equipment. "We've got clear statements about fund movement through offshore accounts, admission of using new investments to pay existing returns, and explicit confirmation of the 60-day withdrawal restriction." Relief washed through me. "So it was enough we have what we need." Sarah squeezed my hand briefly. "It appears so. You did extraordinarily well, Eleanor. Better than we could have hoped." The SUV headed toward the safe house where the team had been working a nondescript office building several blocks away. As we drove, I described the tension I'd observed between Olivia and David, their exchange of glances, the argument I'd heard beginning as I left. "They may be getting nervous," Sarah speculated. "If they suspect anything, they might accelerate their timeline or try to move assets. We'll need to move quickly." At the safe house, the team was already analyzing the recording, cataloging incriminating statements, comparing them with existing evidence. Ryan was there too, pacing nervously until he saw me enter. "Eleanor," he said, relief evident in his voice. "How did it go?" "Apparently well," I replied, sinking gratefully into a chair as someone handed me a cup of tea. "Though I'll be glad when this is over." "It will be soon," he promised. "Thanks to you." For the next 2 hours, I answered questions, clarified responses, helped the team understand nuances they might have missed. David's careful phrasing, Olivia's strategic interruptions, the relationship dynamic between them, all potentially valuable for building the case. Eventually, Sarah called for a break. "You should go home, get some rest," she told me. "We have what we need for now." "What happens next?" I asked, gathering my things. "We finish analyzing today's evidence, combine it with our existing case file, then present everything to the U.S. Attorney's Office," she explained. "With what we have now, they should authorize arrests within days, not weeks." "And Nathan?" I asked the question that never left my mind. "When do we tell him?" Sarah's expression softened. "Once the arrests are imminent. We'll want to speak with him before it happens, prepare him as much as possible." "I want to be the one to tell him," I said firmly. "He should hear it from me, not from strangers." She nodded. "Of course. We'll arrange it." Ryan offered to drive me home, an offer I gratefully accepted. The emotional toll of the afternoon had left me drained, uncertain of my ability to navigate Boston traffic safely. "You were incredibly brave today," he said as we drove through the darkening city streets, rain beginning to spatter against the windshield. I shook my head slightly. Not brave, necessary. Both, he insisted. Most people wouldn't have had the courage to face those people knowing what you know to maintain composure while they discuss defrauding you and your son. Speaking of courage, I said, changing the subject, what made you investigate further after seeing those wedding photos? Many people would have dismissed their suspicions. Ryan's hands tightened slightly on the steering wheel. My grandmother, he said simply. After she lost everything to Meridian, she became different, ashamed, withdrawn. She died believing she'd failed at managing her life. I couldn't let that stand. We drove in silence for several minutes, raindrops streaming across the windows, distorting the city lights beyond. What will you do after this is over? I asked finally. He smiled slightly. Go back to photography. It's what I love, though I might be more selective about wedding clients. The joke, mild as it was, broke some of the tension. I found myself smiling too, the first genuine smile in what felt like weeks. At my house, Ryan insisted on walking me to the door despite the rain. Sarah will call you tomorrow with updates, he said. Try to rest. The hardest part is behind you. But it wasn't, I thought, as I watched him drive away. The hardest part, telling Nathan, still lay ahead. The next 3 days passed in a strange limbo. I moved through my routines, watering plants, attending a library committee meeting, preparing meals I barely tasted, all while waiting for Sarah's call. Each time my phone rang, my heart lurched, but it was never her. Just normal life continuing while mine remained suspended. Nathan called on Wednesday evening. How did your meeting with Olivia go? He asked immediately. She said you seemed interested, but wanted to consult your accountant. That's right, I said carefully. Gordon's reviewing the materials now. Another lie to add to the growing collection. Well, don't take too long, Nathan said lightly. These opportunities don't last forever. If only he knew how right he was, though not in the way he meant. Thursday afternoon, my phone finally displayed Sarah's number. I answered immediately. Eleanor, we're ready to move forward, she said without preamble. The U.S. attorney has approved the arrests. We're preparing to execute warrants tomorrow morning. My breath caught. So soon? We need to move quickly. There are indications Harrington may be preparing to transfer significant assets offshore. And Eleanor, we need to tell Nathan today. Though I'd been expecting this, the reality struck like a physical blow. Today, how? Can you come to Boston? We have a private room at the Federal Building. We can have Nathan flown in from Chicago. Tell him it's regarding a financial matter affecting both of you. He'll be confused, worried. Yes, she acknowledged. But there's no gentle way to do this. 2 hours later, I sat in a sterile conference room in the Federal Building, hands clasped tightly in my lap. Sarah sat beside me along with a victim advocate named Jennifer, who specialized in financial crimes. Ryan had wanted to attend, but Sarah thought it best to keep the group small. We've arranged for a counselor to be available afterward, Jennifer explained gently. This will be an emotional shock for him. I nodded numbly, staring at the closed door, dreading and longing for it to open. I'd prepared what to say a dozen times during the drive, and each version seemed inadequate, impossible. At precisely 4 o'clock, there was a knock. The door opened, and Nathan stood there, confusion evident on his face. Behind him was a federal agent who had escorted him from the reception area. Mom, he said, stepping inside. What's going on? The message said something about an urgent financial matter. I rose, moving toward him, taking his hands in mine. Nathan, please sit down. There's something I need to tell you. His expression shifted from confusion to alarm. Are you okay? Are you sick? I'm fine, I assured him quickly. This isn't about my health. It's about Olivia. He frowned, looking past me to Sarah and Jennifer. What about Olivia? Who are these people? Sarah stepped forward, showing her credentials. Mr. Thompson, I'm Detective Sarah Donovan with the Boston Police Financial Crimes Unit. This is Jennifer Walsh from Victim Services. Victim Services, Nathan repeated, his face paling. Mom, what is this? I guided him to a chair, sitting beside him, still holding his hands. Honey, there's no easy way to say this. Olivia is not who she claims to be. She and her partner, David Harrington, have been operating a financial fraud scheme for years. He stared at me, incomprehension in his eyes. What? That's ridiculous. Mom, what are you talking about? It's true, Nathan, Sarah said gently. We've been investigating Meridian Investments for months. They're operating a Ponzi scheme targeting older investors with substantial assets. Nathan shook his head emphatically. No, that's impossible. I've seen our returns. I've met their other clients. This is some kind of mistake. It's not a mistake, I said softly. The returns aren't real, Nathan. They're fabricated. The other clients are likely actors part of the deception. He pulled his hands away from mine, standing abruptly. I don't believe this. Olivia loves me. We're building a life together. Why would you say these things? The pain in his voice cut through me. I looked to Sarah, who nodded encouragement. Nathan, please sit down, I said. Let me explain everything. For the next 30 minutes, as Nathan sat rigid with disbelief, we presented the evidence photographs from the wedding showing Olivia with David financial records documenting the fraud statements from previous victims. Sarah explained how Olivia had targeted similar individuals in other cities, sometimes through romantic relationships. With each revelation, Nathan's face grew paler, his expression more stricken. When Sarah played a brief audio clip of Olivia and David discussing how to extract maximum capital from my accounts, his hands began to tremble. This can't be happening, he whispered. We're married. She loves me. I'm so sorry, Nathan, I said, reaching for his hand again. I would give anything for this not to be true. He looked at me, sudden realization dawning. The meetings with Meridian. You knew about this. You were part of the investigation. I nodded, tears filling my eyes. Ryan Miller, your wedding photographer, came to me last week. He recognized Olivia as the same woman who defrauded his grandmother. When I realized what was happening, I agreed to help gather evidence. My God, Nathan said, his voice hollow. My wife is a con artist. Our entire marriage is a fraud. He looked up suddenly. Does she know you've discovered this? Does she know about... He gestured vaguely around the room. No, Sarah assured him. As far as Olivia knows, Eleanor is still considering investing with Meridian. But we'll be executing arrest warrants tomorrow morning. Both Olivia and David Harrington will be taken into custody. Nathan stood again, pacing the small room like a caged animal. I need to see her. I need to look her in the eye and hear her explain this. That's not advisable, Sarah said firmly. At this point, any warning could trigger them to destroy evidence or flee. So what am I supposed to do? He demanded, voice rising. Go back to Chicago and pretend everything's normal until the FBI breaks down our door. We've arranged a hotel for you here in Boston, Jennifer explained. We thought you might want to stay with your mother during this difficult time. Nathan ran a hand through his hair, his distress palpable. This can't be real. We were just discussing vacation plans for July. She was researching fertility clinics. His voice broke on the last words. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. Children. They had been discussing children. The depth of the deception and its cruelty stunned even me. I'm so sorry. I whispered again, inadequate words for an unfathomable situation. Nathan sank back into his chair, burying his face in his hands. For several long moments, the room was silent except for his ragged breathing. Finally, he looked up, his expression transformed by grief and anger. What do I need to do? Sarah leaned forward. We'd like you to remain here in Boston until the arrests are complete. Don't contact Olivia. Don't access your joint accounts or make any financial transactions that might alert her. And after, he asked, his voice flat. After, there will be question statements to give. You'll need to document your financial losses. The legal process will take time. He nodded mechanically as if processing instructions for someone else's life. The meeting continued for another hour. Details explained procedures, outlined papers signed. Through it all, Nathan sat mostly silent, responding when necessary, but otherwise lost in his own private devastation. When it was finally over, Sarah and Jennifer stepped out, giving us a moment alone. Nathan, I began, but he held up a hand. Not now, Mom. I just can't talk about this anymore right now. I nodded, respecting his need for space. Will you come home with me? The guest room is ready. He hesitated, then nodded. Yeah, I guess so. The drive home was silent, Nathan staring out the passenger window as rain fell softly against the glass. When we arrived, he carried his small overnight bag inside, declining dinner, retreating to the guest room with a quiet, "Good night. I didn't sleep. How could I?" My son's world had collapsed, and though I had helped prevent greater damage, I couldn't protect him from the pain he was experiencing now. Throughout the night, I heard him moving around his footsteps, occasionally passing my door, his muffled voice once perhaps on the phone with a friend, or just talking to himself in disbelief. Morning arrived gray and somber. I made coffee, prepared a simple breakfast neither of us would likely eat. At 7, Sarah called. "We're moving in now," she said quietly. "I wanted you to know." "Thank you," I replied. "Nathan's here with me. He had a difficult night." "That's to be expected. I'll call again when it's done." I found Nathan on the back porch, staring out at the rain-soaked garden. He looked as if he hadn't slept at all, his face-drawn eyes haunted. "They're making the arrests now," I said softly, setting a cup of coffee beside him. He nodded without looking at me. "What happens to our home, our accounts?" "Sarah said they'll freeze the Meridian assets. Your personal accounts should be accessible once they determine what's legitimately yours versus what came from Meridian." He laughed bitterly. "Legitimate. What does that even mean anymore? My wife, my marriage, my future, none of it was legitimate." I sat beside him, not touching, just present. "I know it feels that way now, but the life you build from here will be real, Nathan. This doesn't define you." "Doesn't it?" he asked, finally looking at me. "I'm the idiot who married a con artist, who never suspected a thing, who was so desperate for happiness after Rachel that I fell for an elaborate scam." "You fell in love," I corrected gently. "There's no shame in that." He shook his head, turning back to the rain. "Love requires truth. I don't even know what this was." We sat in silence until my phone rang again. Sarah's voice was professionally satisfied. "Both suspects are in custody. No complications. Their offices are being searched now." I thanked her, ended the call, and turned to Nathan. "It's done." He closed his eyes briefly. "I keep thinking I'll wake up, and this will all be some bizarre nightmare." "I know," I said softly. "I wish it were." The days that followed passed in a blur of legal meetings, financial consultations, and devastating revelations. Nathan learned the full extent of the fraud, not just his personal losses, which were substantial, but the dozens of other victims across multiple cities. He gave statements to federal prosecutors, signed affidavits, began the painful process of annulment. Through it all, I remained by his side, offering what support I could, respecting his need for space when he retreated into silence. The anger came in waves at Olivia, at himself for being deceived occasionally, even at me for my part in the investigation. "Why didn't you tell me immediately?" he demanded one evening a week after the arrests. "Why let me go on believing the lie?" The investigators insisted on secrecy. I explained, though the justification felt hollow against his pain. "And I wanted to protect you, to make sure we had solid evidence before turning your life upside down." "Protect me," he repeated bitterly. "I'm a grown man, Mom. I don't need protection. I needed the truth." "You're right," I acknowledged. "I should have found a way to tell you sooner. I'm sorry." His expression softened slightly. "No, I'm sorry. I know you were trying to do the right thing. It's just, everything feels like betrayal right now." The media coverage was mercifully brief. Financial fraud rarely holds public interest for long, but still painful. Meridian was exposed as one of the largest Ponzi schemes in recent Massachusetts history, with estimated losses exceeding $50 million across hundreds of victims. David Harrington and Olivia Pierce, whose real name did indeed prove to be Victoria Sloan, were denied bail, deemed flight risks due to their extensive international connections. They faced dozens of charges, from wire fraud to money laundering to tax evasion. 2 weeks after the arrests, Nathan returned to Chicago to pack up their condo to begin disentangling his life from the elaborate fiction Olivia had constructed. I offered to accompany him, but he declined. "This is something I need to do alone," he said, "to see it clearly, to accept what happened." He returned 3 days later, quieter but somehow steadier, as if confronting the physical evidence of deception had helped him process the reality. "I found hidden papers," he told me over dinner his first night back. "Accounts I never knew about. A passport in another name. She had an entire life I knew nothing about." I reached across the table, squeezing his hand. "That was her, Nathan, not you. You couldn't have known." "Maybe," he acknowledged. "Or maybe I didn't want to see the signs. There were moments, inconsistencies, things that didn't quite add up. But I ignored them because I wanted so badly to believe I'd found love again after Rachel." The healing process was slow, uneven. There were days Nathan seemed almost his old self, helping me in the garden, discussing plans to restart his career in Boston, even laughing at an old family joke. Other days, the weight of betrayal pressed him back into silence, into questioning every decision, every relationship. 3 months after the arrests, we attended the preliminary hearing together. Nathan insisted on being present, on facing Olivia directly. We sat in the courtroom watching as she was led in wearing prison scrubs, her once perfect appearance now stripped of artifice. When she saw Nathan, she paused, their eyes meeting across the room. Something passed between them, a question, an accusation, perhaps even a genuine flicker of regret. Then her gaze moved to me, hardening with recognition and hatred before she was led to the defense table. "Are you okay?" I whispered to Nathan. He nodded, his jaw set. I needed to see her like this, to know it's real. The legal proceedings would continue for months, perhaps years. But as we left the courthouse that day, Nathan walked straighter, his steps more purposeful. "I think I'm ready to look at those job offers in Boston," he said as we drove home. "It's time to start over here." I glanced at him, hope cautiously unfurling. "You're sure Chicago has been your home for years?" "Chicago has too many memories now," he said simply. "Besides, I miss New England, and—" He hesitated. "I'd like to be closer to you." That evening we sat on the porch swing as the sun set, a gentle summer breeze carrying the scent of roses, Thomas's roses, across the yard. For the first time in months, the silence between us felt comfortable rather than strained. "I've been thinking about something Ryan said," Nathan remarked finally. "About how his grandmother died believing she'd failed herself, not knowing she'd been deliberately targeted." I nodded, remembering Ryan's pain when he spoke of her. "At least I know the truth," Nathan continued. "As painful as it is, I know what happened. I can rebuild without wondering if I did something wrong, if I somehow deserved this." "You never deserved this," I said firmly. "Never." He smiled slightly, the expression still tinged with sadness, but no longer with despair. "I know that now. And Mom, thank you for being brave enough to uncover the truth, even knowing how much it would hurt me." I took his hand, my heart full. That's what mothers do. We protect our children even when it breaks our hearts. As darkness settled over Newton, we remained on the porch, two survivors of different kinds of loss, finding our way forward together. The photographer had called, and everything had changed. But not all change, I was beginning to believe, was for the worse. Sometimes the hardest truths clear the path to something genuine, something built on a foundation that can't be shaken by deception. Tomorrow would bring more challenges, legal meetings, financial restructuring, emotional hurdles neither of us could yet anticipate. But tonight, sitting beside my son beneath a sky filling with stars, I felt something I hadn't expected to feel again so soon. Hope.